Good afternoon and welcome to this session on a very, very important topic and a very relevant topic of today, which is about risk. And the question that you all have is, are CFOs risk ready? Well, CFOs by nature are known to be risk averse. Okay, they don't gamble. They are one breed. They don't gamble. Even they do it very quietly in their private lives, and certainly not in their official lives. CFOs hedge their bets and tend to make sure that they do not take any undue risk. Typically, the focus of the CFO has been on managing internal risk. And although there are many external risks around us, but in the past we have all focused on risks such as exchange rates, changes in policy, oil prices, and so on and so forth. But I think the last 1 year has changed a lot of that. COVID-19 has been a sort of black swan event, if I may use the term, and we have all realized, not only at a CFO level, but I would say at all levels, across all levels in the company, that risk management is central to our existence. To talk about this relevant topic, we have got a very distinguished set of panel members, and I will take a few minutes just to introduce them. So we have 5 panel members today. I'll just sort of introduce them in no specific order. So we start off with Neeraj Basu. Neeraj is the Group CFO of Blue Star. He has experience ranging over 30 years. He's a chartered accountant, a company secretary, and a certified risk professional. He's worked across multiple companies and multiple sectors, I would say. He's worked in Escorts. I think started his career in Escorts, moved on to HCL Technology, and then worked for the Max Group in Max India and as well as Max Coupa before moving into Blue Star. Next, we have Ashish Tiwari. He's a Group CFO for TCI, Transport Corporation of India Group. Ashish has more than 22 years of experience. He's a CA and a CPA. He started his career with DTDC and then moved on to TCI and has worked in various capacities and is moved to the Group CFO level. We have Mr. G. Sambasivan. He's a CFO of Tata Sky. Again, has more than 30 years of experience. He's a chartered accountant, a cost accountant, a company secretary. He's also, did his graduation with IIM Ahmedabad. Took time off from his career for 2 years to do that. He has worked, started his life with BPL Mobile, spent a bit of time there, moved into Vodafone, and spent a good amount of time in India and Europe before moving into Tata Sky. We have Kumar Subbaiah, who's a CFO of CA TAS, more than 20 years of experience, again a CA and a cost accountant, spent many years with Unilever in various roles, in various capacities, in Asia, in India, as well as in Asia Pacific, at Asia Pacific level before moving into CA as a CFO. And finally, we have Hitesh Uppal. He's a CFO of Magic Bricks, has more than 18 years of experience, a chartered accountant. By qualification, has again worked across multiple sectors, starting with Citibank, moving into Citi Financial, then moving into SRF, NIIT, and then with Magic Bricks for, I think, about 12 years now. So we have a very interesting mix of personalities and a very interesting mix of companies. We have brick and mortar companies as well as as well as companies like Magic Bricks, which are on the other side of the other end of the spectrum. So I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion and an interesting and a productive discussion. Okay, we'll start off with Hitesh, and my question for Hitesh today is about the deluge of data that we are seeing, because companies are getting into digital mode. All of our companies, whether it's a traditional brick and mortar company or the current, or one of the new age companies, we are all, at a fairly high level of digitalization. Now, there are obviously risks associated with digital adoption, as we all know. So the question that we have for you is that what type of risks do you see in your organization, and um, how do you prioritize them, and how do you manage such risk?
Thanks,
Hitesh, over to you.
Devashish. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Devashish, for such a warm welcome. To start with, when we talk about risk, okay, especially in the digital environment, a risk is an old word, and security and risk are associated. So we try to protect something which has a value. If we do not protect that, then the value will not come. For example, is simple. If somebody has a diamond, okay, if they put that diamond in a locker and nobody knows about that, then the value will not be established. It has to be put somewhere where people are coming. And in the digital world, the same goes to the data one. So data has to move from one point to another point. Otherwise, there is no value to attach to this data. And when this data moves from one point in the current scenario, from maybe from one organization to another, from one person to another person, everything is connected in today's environment. And here comes the risk, because the data becomes a vulnerable. And that's why we want to protect that. And I think when we look at a particular vulnerability and we try to fix that, and try to capture and try to come to a situation where we are very well covered that, it means that we are progressing. But when we progress from one point to another, the new attacks comes in. And one of the surveys done by this World Economic Forum, which says that a global economy has lost close to $600 billion in 2017. From 2017, 18, 19, 20, this number is constantly increasing. $600 billion in 2017 becomes $800 billion in 2018. Then 2019, it becomes $1 trillion. And 2020, the last year, it becomes $1.5 trillion. Similarly, they have also projected that the cyber crime will cost close to $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. So this is the thing which the greatest risk which we can see, which we can quantify. So in every organization, if we do that, a simple mathematics, when we divide by this $10.5 trillion, it runs into crores and crores of rupees. But this is not the one aspect of the risk associated with digitalization, or whatever we name it. It goes much beyond that. So there are certain risks which we see over the surface of an organization, which completely which are completely visible, tangible also, like customer. It's a customer breach notification, post breach customer protection. For example, if somebody goes to your customer and try to defraud them, then definitely there's a trust goes from your organization to some other organization. There are certain regulatory compliance also. Government is getting very active on the cyber cell part. Public relation goes bad. You need to go into litigation. You need to invest on cybersecurity improvement. You need to do technical investigation. So these are the risks, which I say, which is clearly impact over the surface. And then there are certain below surface, because once you get a bad reputation in the market, your maybe insurance premium increases, your cost to raise debt increases, because the trust goes away from the organization. It will create certain operational disruption. Means when there's a one data center goes or get on an attack, then definitely your operation could gets disrupted. Another thing is the customer lost value, or your relationship will also go for a toss. You may lose certain contracts. So your IP goes for a toss. So these are the risks I can divide in between two categories, which is one over the surface and other below the surface. And as far as Magicbricks is concerned, to cater all that, we have categorized these risks in these two categories only, and then we have divided the EVRM framework, where each function at sits and discuss with corresponding your auditor, and we get on a complete approach on how to tackle that. So where we stand in the competition, what competition is doing, what we are doing, and we also keep on engaging foreign audit, investigation audit, all that, so that penetration audit, so that we know that our server data is protected, and we are very well covered with certain regulation, even though GDPR is not applicable to us, but still we are getting into that compliance also. So that's to start with.
Okay, that's very interesting, Hitesh. What you said is nice perspective. about the threats coming out of digitalization, growing digitalization. And unfortunately, digitization is a way of life, and consequently, the threats will keep on increasing, and we have to find out, more and more ways and improved ways and means of tackling this. I would now move to Neeraj, and the question that I have for Neeraj today is that how do companies evaluate risk? Is it a purely subjective analysis, or can you build in some degree of objectivity?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Devashish. And also thank Economic Times for having me on this panel. A very interesting topic indeed, and something which is very close to my heart. Quite passionate about the subject. Well, to your question, Devashish, whether risk evaluation, is it a subjective analysis, or can this be made a bit objective? See, my take is as follows. First and foremost, the subject of risk management itself is integrally connected with strategy, because risk management is indeed about how effectively any entity, organization is able to execute its strategy, achieve its objectives and goals. And in that connection, that context, if we integrate risk assessment, risk evaluation, risk management itself with dovetail it with the strategic context, then the objectivity of the exercise itself becomes very clear and quite high. That's point number one. Moving to the main element of risk evaluation, even before risk evaluation starts, the fulcrum of this exercise is actually to do with the appetite, the risk appetite that an enterprise, an entity believes or feels is something that they would want, or the board believes that the entity should assume. Now that appetite assessment, appetite evaluation and determination itself needs a fair degree of, again, connection with strategy on the one side and the organizational context of what is the level of comfort in terms of the appetite assumption. The evaluation exercise itself is generally based, when you're looking at a set of inherent risks, is itself based on the historical experience around whether it is the impact or it is around the likelihood of various risks, which are generally backed by data, which is generally backed by actually experience. And that experience itself, if historically studied, can be quite rich and useful to get closer to the objectivity. And finally, the entire mitigation exercise is one is, of course, you kind of look at what you would want to do in terms of the mitigation actions, but then how to monitor the key risk indicators, which gives an idea of the effectiveness of performance on the key risk indicators, which really throws a light on the effectiveness of mitigation actions, is also objectively measurable. So my view is, by and large, risk management, enterprise risk management, and that's how it's also enshrined in the COSO 2017 framework, which very closely connects it with strategy. It is objective. Now, having said this, there will always be some elements of some subjective assessment. Now, for example, how do you assess brand risk? How do you assess reputational risk? There will be element of, or especially around appetite, around what is your appetite going to be around reputational risks. So there will be few elements or some elements of subjective assessment, judgmental assessments, but by and large, this is a subject which can be objectively determined to a very large extent. That's my view, Devashish.
Okay, that's very interesting. So what you're telling us is that obviously it's a mix of the two. It's not a binary thing. It's somewhere in between, and a lot of emphasis needs to be. You're putting a good amount of emphasis on the two things. One is what's the strategy, and consequently what's the risk appetite of the entity.
Right.
And obviously that will determine the degree of risk one is prepared to. Thank you for that, Neeraj. It was that's educative. Certainly, very educative. I'd like to now move on to Sambasivan and ask him about are we focusing only on the internal risk, or are we looking at external risk as well, given the current situation, especially in the last, what has unfolded in the last 1.5 years?
Thank you very much, Devashish, for having me here. And till say 2018 or 2019, you are right. The companies have been focusing more on the internal risks and less on the external risk, I suppose. But the biggest external risk, which was pandemic, it was not even there in my ERM document. Pandemic as a risk, I went through the ERM document. It was not identified as a risk itself, first of all. So it must have been missed out for some reason. But yes, we had talked about terrorist risk. We had talked about some political risk, geopolitical risk, and all those things. Something happens to our satellite, and then the signals are not coming in. The satellite goes for 2 overnight suddenly, because then that could happen. But pandemic, it was not in our risk register.
Right.
So now we have added it. Obviously, we would have added it, right? So, so it's one of the critical risk. So yes, external risks are equally important. I'm just talking from my industry perspective, which is the DTH industry. For us, apart from pandemic risk, there are other external risks. For example, we are now in a highly digitized format. We were always digitized, but in the last couple of years, the level of digital transformation has accelerated, like it would have happened for many, many companies. So now we are doing most of the stuff. For example, just a simple example. In the past, prior to this pandemic, we were, say, having 50% of our customers recharging through online methods, meaning not going to the dealer and recharging. Now
Right.
that number has suddenly catapulted to, say, 75%, which is a 50% jump.
Right.
50 to 75%. Here we are talking about millions of transactions in a day. So that puts in a lot of pressure on your resources, so to say.
Yes.
IT resources, IT capability, the kind of volumes, what is the kind of queues which you can have, because every transaction has to go through within a second, because the customer recharges, and if because of the queue and the transaction doesn't go through, he can't watch television. He or she cannot watch television. So that's the worst thing. Then your call center load goes up. It's got a catalytic effect on other functions as well, if our system is not scalable. So
Right.
to that extent, the scalability has become a big phenomenon from the digitization perspective. We are now looking at where are the, what you can say, vulnerable points in our scalability because of the digital transformation which is happening across the board. Like e-commerce is booming. And for example, we are now trying to see how we can even resolve customer complaints without going to the customer's residence. So if there are, say, 100 types of complaints, we are saying that, okay, out of this, can we say these are 20 things? Can we do it without even going to the customer's house? How we can do it from the back end? So a lot of things, thoughts are going into our think tank. So it has actually changed the business model. And therefore, yes, external risks are very, very critical. And yes, but at the same time, the biggest risk what we are now looking at is work from home, because of it, the cyber security, we believe, is now a bigger risk.
Yes.
In terms of hacking. In the past, my employees used to sit in one place, let us say in 3 different places. 1,000 people are sitting in 3 or 4 locations. So you have got a WAN connectivity. So therefore, whenever they are accessing our system, say ERP system or any system, it's all happening in a closed loop. Whereas the moment they go and access from 1,600 locations, let us say, the whole risk profile changes. I need to make sure that when the person is logging into our system, logging into SAP or logging into any of our CRM systems, there is no hacking. Outsiders cannot view in, right? So you need to put in that extra firewalls and extra layers of firewall, which is a big thing for us. So the kind of fear which we have in terms of data leakage, data security, customers' data security is all gone up manifold, because now the points of what you can say challenge is gone up multifold. Earlier, my vulnerability was in, say, 10 locations. Now my vulnerability is in 1,600 locations. So that makes it multifold, right? Multiple number of times. So that is the biggest risk which we are now worried about from the data security and the data leakage perspective. With that, I will stop. I have taken my time, I suppose. Thanks.
Thank you. That was interesting, and the practical examples you gave talking about your own industry actually re-emphasize that point. And thank you for that. I think it made people understand much more easily.
Yeah.
I will now move to Ashish, and Ashish, my question for you today, this afternoon, is we all know that risk is important. As finance people, that risk is important, and that awareness, we are sort of trained to have that imbibed in us, so to say. But how do you develop a company-wide awareness about risk, and how do you convince people about the need to manage that?
Yeah, thank you, Devashish and Economic Times for having me here. So basically, to my mind, kind of every manager is a risk manager. Having said that, the risk factor is known to everyone, every functional line and every kind of organizational leaders, they know about the risk as an individual. Now, as far as the awareness is concerned, I think it's a kind of a need to look at the organizational wide culture that actually to ensure that everyone understand its job as far as the risk is concerned, and they are aware of it. Now coming to risk is a kind of a known fact now. Coming to a digital part, digital things which is attached to the risk, now it becomes a digital risk. So digital risk have their own nuances, and a kind of awareness which can be given to the people basically is to my mind is to ask the right questions. So the questions can be kind of with the leadership and the functional line is kind of how do we balance our risk strategy to manage the downside or the inside risk? What is a kind of our risk appetite, which actually matches with the priorities, the objectives of the organization? The third is how we are kind of harnessing the technology part. One of my colleagues just talk about the unknown things like which happen, the work from home things, and there is a risk on the IT side as well, the access to be from the outside, the intranet. Now this is again kind of we have to just think about it. Then we have to see how the kind of automation is impacting the role and responsibilities across the all line of functions, and how they are kind of we have to so there are various kind of questions which can be there to kind of just to create an awareness. As far as the another factor is a kind of there is some listed space in the India as a worldwide is also there. Companies of a certain size, they have their own set, and I think the SEBI has kind of already created awareness 10 years back. So for example, in our company, we have a kind of a risk ERM setup some 15 years back as is the SEBI mandated. Now, again, there are some changes and there is a risk committee is there. Then we have a CRO in place. And the last point is a kind of risk mitigation or the risk assessment is not just a function, one function of a CRO or CFO. Actually, it's a kind of multi-layer kind of involvement is there. So be it a marketing or be it CTO or CIO, the IT, and of course the top leadership, they have to be kind of involved there and look at kind of a complete. We have kind of a stakeholder groups, whether it is a strategic or a financial, of course, the CFO's job, or the operational risk, marketing, regulatory and compliances, and of course the IT is also there. Then we have a kind of a framework over there, and we just down the risk and make it as a kind of a risk register. So overall is a kind of to handle this is a kind of a complete digital risk profile, and where each functional line have separately assessed the threats and the mitigation plan. So the one last point is a kind of very, very important is that the risk mitigation here is to kind of integrated one. So we cannot from 1, 2, 3, 4 to my understanding, we cannot leave it. We can have a priority over there, but it has to be kind of a integrated solution, and we have to manage all. We cannot leave anything.
Right. Thank you, Ashish. Thanks for that. And you left some interesting thoughts on the table there, which is about effectively involving every department, every manager in the company in the task, in the process of managing the risk. And that actually leads me on to the next question, which is about if it is such an enterprise, if it's such a activity that requires enterprise-wide awareness and also involvement, there would be costs involved in that risk mitigation activity. And these times are difficult, as you all know, and companies are focusing a lot on cost optimization instead of putting in more money on risk mitigation, etc. Now, is there some scope of avoiding, if I may use the word, risk mitigation plan? How do we balance out? In other words, the question is that how do I balance out a situation where I'm trying to reduce my cost and also at the same time trying to reduce or mitigate my risk? And this question is for Kumar Subbaiah.
Thanks, Debashish. Okay, this is a very practical question that as finance people, all of us would be facing every day, not only relating to digital related risks, but a lot of other questions where we have to prioritize cost versus whatever we are trying to do. Okay, and one thing that comes to my mind when I used to work for Levers, whenever a proposal came relating to safety, okay, no questions used to be asked, okay, because that always had a priority, okay, and most of the safety related proposals, whether it is capital expenditure or revenue expenditure, would go through with a limited amount of scrutiny. Okay, I'm just trying, I'll park that statement here. I think similarly, as Samba also mentioned today, earlier we were accessing data, most of us were going to one workplace and accessing data, and we till COVID hit us, okay, we still relying on physical documents. Okay. And this is a second reminder for all of us, 3 years back when demonetization happened also, even at that point in time, we realized the importance of digital, okay, and maybe less of it compared to today. Because we didn't have cash and therefore lots of payments had to be done digitally. Needless to say, okay, the risk mitigation has higher priority over cost control at this point in time when we are exposed to risks in various forms, because access points have increased substantially. Okay, and it's not that it's going to stop once the economy everything becomes normal. I'm sure people will continue to work from home, not all of them, but a large portion of them, and many of them would go to a coffee shop and work. I'm still already hearing that some of the business houses are talking about giving more flexibility to people and for people to work. So therefore, however, considering the importance of spending money on risk mitigation, I think what is also important is that the resources are also limited. So ideally, we would in our organization, we'd like to take C8 or an RPG. The approach is that you can't have a tool to mitigate all the applications, risks arising out of all the applications. Okay, so there are certain must-have applications where you need to completely ensure that risk is fully mitigated. For example, ERP, it's important to ensure that it is fully secured. And what are those minimum must-have tools for us? Okay, firewalls, okay, antivirus, okay, and third thing is necessary tools for phishing, etc. These are minimum and must-have tools. The second approach is, it's very important to educate employees, okay, and people join the organization, create awareness on do's and don'ts in the current environment in terms of how do we access data. Third one is that overall, the way the data architecture is created. Okay, we have to make sure, like for example, there are certain applications you don't you don't access through internet, but you access through certain restrictions and things like that. So in the order of priority, you have to create that framework so that it is not that we spend unlimited amount of money, certain amount of money. From our organization standpoint, the thumb rule with respect to what is the quantum of money that we should be spending Okay, on the IT total spend, okay, we would like to spend anywhere between 12 and 15% of the total IT spend on risk mitigation. Okay, so that's a layer. So while the size of the pie might come down, okay, but share of risk mitigation will continue to remain at that particular level. Okay, that's another step that we would like to do. But the fundamental, the basic rule of risk mitigation is that what you try to do to mitigate risks or mitigate costs should not actually lead to more risks. Okay,
Yeah.
so like for example, you might cut costs, okay, but that cost cutting should not lead to more costs. Okay, so
Right.
therefore, from that fundamental point of view, so have this layer, have must-have applications, create an appropriate architecture. Okay, third, maybe educate and create awareness among employees, and also have overall framework in terms of how much money that you want to spend so that it's appropriately prioritized. Okay, and then move on. I think that's the way I would like to respond to this question, Debashish.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very comprehensive and very insightful. I'll move back to Hitesh, and the question that I have for him is that, obviously with all this that's happening around us and all that we heard just now, the role of the CRO or the Chief Risk Officer is becoming increasingly important. Can CFOs graduate to themselves to a CRO role? Can they transform themselves to becoming the CRO in an organization? And if so, how efficiently can a CFO play the role of a CRO?
Interesting bit on this. Like Ashish said, there are certain requirement also to have this position in place. But when I see a relationship between CRO and CFO, it seems to be very interesting and important. Okay, the CRO and CFO both hold important position that play vital in every organization and a company. The CRO remains a kind of main management level contact for risk committee at many large financial companies. But the small or the medium enterprises, CFO sometimes also expected to play this important role. What I found that small companies do not have a chief risk officer. This puts an additional stress on responsibility of CFO. So that's why it's important that CFO should, at least for medium or small enterprise, should seek a kind of an opportunity or get a kind of all education or the new technology to transit into CRO role, especially when we are working in this digitalized environment. So it's a two-part. So one for the companies which are non-digital, means a traditional manufacturing company, there's a digital company. Since I come from the digital background, this becomes important for the CFO for an internet company to know about the risk associated with digitalization. But to answer your question, definitely, at least for a medium or small enterprises, CFO and CRO should work in a kind of, should play a dual role. CFO should play a dual role for these two positions, because sometimes it's not prudent to invest on a new position.
Right.
One important thing is the CFO responsibility is to seek the optimal return on the investment, but CRO responsibility to identify the worst case scenario or so that the company is always prepared for. In this scenario, there could be a kind of clash between two roles. Means the CRO wants to implement something, CFO always look for a kind of return of investment.
Right.
So when I look for the enterprise where CFO is playing this role, then he has to balance the both position. But and the last part of the question is about how they can transition. There are a lot of things that's coming in. They can get actively involved in all kind of developments that happening. For example, let's say if there is a need of a cybersecurity, they get into all discussion with CTO. If there is a data analytics tools getting implemented, AI tools, RPA, so it should get into all this. And not only the CFO, but their respective teams also get into that, so that they can also develop the requirement when there is coming, when there's a requirement of a kind of a risk assessment from maybe a traditional or a new approach.
Okay, that's interesting. And what you say is, I tend to quite agree with that, because a CFO tends to have a background in managing risk. Awareness about risk is contextual about risk is definitely more evolved than many people in the organization, and he's probably a good fit to be get into a CRO role, especially in a small or medium-sized organization. I will go back to Neeraj with my next question, and the question for Neeraj is that while there is no doubt today actually that the risks are very dynamic and evolving, as we have seen, and therefore we need a very, very comprehensive risk strategy to counter the threats that are coming up on a day-to-day basis. So do I need a specialist CRO for this role? Or can a CFO or say, for example, a chief internal auditor develop to do the CRO's role as well?
So I guess I'll take on from what Hitesh was talking about.
Yeah.
And also to some extent, I think Ashish touched upon a very important point that just like HR, human resource management is not necessarily the responsibility of a HR department. Risk management is certainly not the responsibility of the chief risk officer. That's how I would look at it. And I'll explain why. So basically, where do the risks originate from? I think we need to just pause and reflect on that. The risks are integral to strategy, and they are integral to business decisions that get taken pretty much every day by business leaders at all levels. So whether they are junior levels, middle levels, senior levels. So there are risks which are embedded in all these decisions. And to that extent, when we talk about a comprehensive risk strategy, the risk need to be, the entire risk framework needs to get embedded into the business processes, because that is where the entire impact will be realized. Now, I'll give you one example, and I'll also connect, the last question you asked around, the cost versus the risk mitigation effect. Now, just consider just a simple example around foreign currency risk, dealing in foreign currency risk. We all know there is a cost to managing that risk, which is whether you buy, an options contract or a forwards contract. You can buy hedging contracts, and you pay a cost for that. Unless the person who's managing this risk embeds that strategy around understanding, analyzing what could be the implications on exposure, understands what are the alternative mitigation options possible, what are the cost benefits, and then take a decision. So I'm just trying to illustrate likewise across the entire organization and the contours of strategy, the risk management must get integrated into business operating processes. Now come to the CRO. Now, of course, by whatever name called, a CRO or his team or that team will play a very critical role, because you need a conduit, you need a bridge between the risk framework and rest of the organization, because everybody can't have a holistic perspective. That's the CRO's office role. So they are basically a link between the framework and the operating environment, and they play this role of making sure that there is a consistency around the application of all these strategies and these practices, and then keep bringing back the learnings into the framework to keep enhancing and improving it. So that's how I would look at it. I would tend to make it more of an operating process rather than a specialized internal audit department playing a role, or a finance department playing a role, or a risk team owning parts of these frameworks. So and that in my experience has worked brilliantly across many examples.
Thank you, Neeraj. And so that looks like a lot of work. Sounds like a lot of work for an organization. And I was just wondering, and I'll ask this question to my the next channel member, which is Ashish, is that can a company outsource the risk management activity, given that it's so embedded into every step of their lives, and as Neeraj put it? And is the wide decision to outsource risk management? Like, for example, very often we outsource internal audit. I mean, most companies do. Many companies do, I would say. Can we also outsource our risk management activities?
Yeah, I think this. Thank you for this having this wonderful position. Basically, now is very relevant, as one of my previous colleagues just talk about the cost factor as well. So I will also put in that. basically it's a more of a kind of a the ecosystem the company is running. For example, a listed company in India, now I just talked about it, they have to necessarily have a CRO now. So the CRO is there. Then you have for certain size of company, you have necessarily have to have in-house internal audit as well. Of course, there are outside agencies are there. So here the question is kind of at what stage there can be kind of outside resource which can be engaged, and second is on which area. So there is a data security point. For example, we have a kind of a nowadays expert risk professional who are expert in the hacking part, so they can help immensely. Then we have a resource professional, risk professional in the social media kind of activities. They can help. So I think if the companies or the organizations wanting to engage or taking the outside help, so there can be a kind of area wise or the risk wise outsourcing can be possible. And of course again it is with kind of again subject to the cost budget as well.
Right.
But I think there can be kind of some limited outsourcing which is possible at some point of time, at least for the risk identification, which is a beginning and very important part. And then the mitigation is a more of an internal thing which company has to see depending on the size and the area of operation. Or there can be kind of a full outsourcing as well, where somebody from the outside actually they not only help you in devising it, but they also keep on continue teaching you and have a kind of a regular monitoring as well. So I think it's a more of a it's a thing which is to be seen internally first, and depending on the company's business, the ecosystem, there is a kind of no harm in taking the outside. And of course today nowadays, since the digital is a kind of a buzzword, there's lot of potential while we look at outside help. And of course there is a kind of a niche areas where we can take the outside help. Yeah.
Right. No, you're quite right. From my own personal experience, I can see one of the companies that I work for, we did use an external agency, a specialized agency, to create a framework. And then once they created the framework and sort of taught us how to evaluate, etc., and then we took it from there and then built on it. So yeah, that could be one approach. Definitely one approach. Or else you can try and see if you can get outside help in sort of even evaluating the risk on a more regular basis. Yeah, both approaches could be possible.
And one kind of I will just emphasize on one point, that the external risk is helpful when you are going to foresee the risk, identify the risk. While when you create something internal plan, a mitigation plan, it's actually internal activity, because external people don't understand your business.
Yes, that's a very valid point, because external people will find it more difficult to understand the business. Yes, certainly. I'll go back to Hitesh now, and the question that I have for him again is, sometimes people say that these two roles, the CFO role and the CRO role, these are two sides of the same coin. And at times they say the CFO can be at loggerheads or loggerheads with the CRO, in the term says they're not in a bad sense, but their views can be diametrically opposite to each other. Now, while both are possible, which relationship fits better to bring better results? And that's for Hitesh.
So there is saying high risk, high reward. So when we look at other aspect of this coin, it means higher the risk, higher the probability of a loss. So it's become important for an organization to look at kind of the higher probability of a loss, make it more important that both CFO and CRO work in better integration. So I feel that if both these roles, CFO and CRO, instead of working face to face, but if they work shoulder to shoulder, that will help in better managing the all the financial and the risk of the organization. So it also looks at the current environment also, because the current uncertainty about increasing default, volatile market, there are different strict compliances, unpredictable consumer behavior. So there is a good chance that something is missed by CFO, but being catched by CRO. So I think these two relationships should be strengthened, and we can definitely take benefit out of these relations in terms of operation stability, predictability of return, enhanced reporting, increased compliance, and improved profitability everywhere. And I think this the organization or the board also want that, say, if these two roles work together, then there is a greater efficiency across all departments. So that's my take, that if these two roles are working together, then definitely this will help organization.
It is interesting what you say, Hitesh, and actually that gives me another thought, and I will request Samba to address this. Now, there is a need for the CFO and CRO to work shoulder to shoulder, as you correctly put it. Okay, but at times the functions tend to be overlapping, and there could be conflicts. How do you avoid this conflict? Because if it's very often it can happen that I as the CFO might be trading into the territory of the CRO and vice versa, and obviously none of us would like it. How do I make this relationship more symbiotic?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how we can say practical this question is, because I have not heard of too many organizations, maybe I have not asked too many people, of CRO being a separate portfolio. If I know, say, maybe 100 CFOs I've interacted, not more than 10 or even less than 10 have a separate CRO as a separate function. Mostly what I have noticed till now is that the risk as an element is part of the CFO role. That's how I have seen. Maybe that trend is changing and I am not aware. I stand corrected if that is so. So from that perspective, I personally believe that even if the trend changes and yes, there is a CRO like CDO, when the digital transformation is happening, there are a lot of companies who have got chief digital officer.
Yes.
There I know a few companies where they have appointed CDOs, right? But CROs, I'm finding it hard to find out companies. I don't know in this team if there is any CRO who is there, but at least in my company, CRO and CFO are one and the same in Tata Sky. But having said that, yes, trend could change and there will be a lot more CROs who will be coming in like CDOs. But I don't see any, what you can say, treading of shoes or anything like that, because both are complementary to each other. Like it is like a CTO role, for example, IT head. How do you expect that IT head to be treading in the roles of the CFO or CFO getting into IT? Because there is a lot of transformation projects which we work closely together to deliver it for the organization, right? I gave the example of that transformation of the scalability, so to say, in terms of the number of recharges and all. So there's a lot of funding which is required for all these transformation initiatives. So unless we prioritize those IT initiatives, I cannot say, okay, this is IT's requirement and therefore that is not important or something like that. I think as a collaborative effort for the organization, CRO and CFO role can easily complement with each other. And I don't see any conflict of interest or any treading into shoes as long as you work collaboratively. So I don't see that as a very, what you can say, big issue, so to say. Maybe I'm wrong. I would like to hear from other people as well on this point between CFO and CRO.
No,
So,
yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, Neeraj or anyone, you can please step in. Yeah.
So Samba, typically what I have seen in my experience, more regulated sectors such as banks, financial services, insurance do tend to prefer to have a separated, segregated CRO, because see, for a credit assessment in a bank, that function typically rolls up to a CRO, which is distinct. So So it's contextual to which sector you're talking about, and I guess the answer you'll find a healthy mix across both.
Thank you. Yeah, of course, yes. Banks and insurance companies, they do have CROs. Yes, even in Tata's, we have Tata AIG. They have a CRO, and I know the CROs also. So yes.
Yeah. In fact,
yeah.
In fact, one of my friends is just stepped out of his CFO role and moved into a CRO role in his organization, and I was asking him as how he's managing the transition. So he's actually finding it quite difficult.
Yeah.
So it is,
I have also seen an internal auditor actually doubling up as CRO. That also I have seen in some companies. The chief internal auditor typically also does the CRO role. That also I have seen in a couple of companies.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we have in my organization, for example.
Oh.
The chief of internal audit also handles that. He's a CRO.
That I have seen. Yes.
Neeraj, I'll come back to you and ask you that, see, experts say that, integration and shared data services can help in establishing a symbiosis, if I can use the term, between the risk function and the finance function. Do you agree to that? Do you think this logic is justified?
So Devashish, I would propose to go actually a little beyond risk and finance. It is more of an entity level integration, which of course will include finance, it will include risk, which include operations. So the integration of a variety of components which feed into risk management are very critical to achieve. And I'll try and give an example as well. And data, of course, plays a very critical role, because unless there's an ecosystem of what I call vigil mechanism, kind of a vigil mechanism that gets created and implemented across the company, there will be a lot of duplication. So for example, internal audit, they will come and do their own work and they'll have their own findings, something around risk, something around control, something around mitigation effectiveness. Now, unless the internal audit work is integrated into the mitigation effectiveness assessment by the risk team or the risk assessors, they will end up duplicating or missing out the work that the internal audit would have already done. Another example. So every company, mostly they have a whistleblower policy or a whistleblower framework, and usually you have fraud risk management practices. Now assume there's some finding around a fraud, or there's a learning around some whistleblower event. On the one side, those learnings and the data that emerges from any such investigation or any such instance throws up lights on how do you strengthen your fraud management or whistleblower governance management. But that data is equally valuable from an IFC point of view, because how do you go back now to your IFC framework and strengthen the controls over financial reporting, over a variety of financial controls? So achieving this integration helps from an overall GRC point of view, governance, risk and compliance point of view. It's very critical to build this package or this wrapper of what I call vigil mechanism through, of course, shared data and a shared platform where all the components talk to each other and feed into each other. And that's how it works quite effectively.
Good. Unfortunately, running a little short on time. So we'll have to sort of conclude quickly. But so what I request each of you is to share your thoughts on the topic that we have for today. Are CFOs, are we really risk ready? So maybe all of you can share your thoughts, and maybe start off with Ashish.
Yeah, so I think CFO as a function, and it's a kind of so risk handling, risk mitigation, risk identification is a kind of a very inherent to the function itself. So depending on the size and the scale where CFO works, actually it is there, and that the kind of involvement and those would vary, but it is there. I will say the risk is also as I in the last answer I just mentioned that every individual is a kind of a risk manager, right? Here and there in the life as well, we keep on taking risk, and because no risk, no reward, right? So that way it is. So it is in the every function, and especially in the finance side, it is very important because actually finance is a kind of, I will say, the bloodstream of organization, and it actually impact everywhere. It impact HR, it impact IT, it impact business everywhere. So that way, actually, I think CFO, of course, they are the kind of risk ready, and they should be.
Good. Thank you for that, Ashish. And Kumar Subbaiah, do you have any, I mean, would you like to give your views on the same topic?
If you're in the business, obviously, there's no business in the world where there's no risk. Okay, so therefore, as a function, I think we have to play a lead role in mitigating some of the risks, and for some of the risks, we have to ensure that the organization stands by us and we work as one organization to mitigate some of the risks. Okay, and many a times we take decisions with maybe only 70% of the information available. Okay, I'm not talking about digital risk, like for example, when you take some large, big decisions on your capital expenditure, certain decision on M&A, for example, where you play a very important role as a finance professional. You don't have all the information, but maybe you have 70% of the information and you still take decisions. So obviously the risks are bound to come. Okay, in general, I think all of us over a period of time picked up certain amount of skills to mitigate certain risks. It could be forex related risks, it could be commodity related risks. Okay, it could be other business related risks. Okay, where I think reasonably equipped. But if you honestly ask me, I think the risk associated with, say, cyber, okay, or anything relating to overall digital IT, things are evolving, things are changing every day. Okay, it's important for us to update ourselves, and constantly look at it and don't underestimate the impact of those risks. So that, because the risks are not only business continuity, not only the financial risks, the risks are also reputational risks, technology related risks, etc. So I would say conventional, traditional risks, we are reasonably well prepared in terms of how to handle them, how to mitigate them. The new risks that have come in the recent past, okay, I think we have a long way to go in terms of equipping ourselves to mitigate them and manage them. That's the way I would like to respond, Debashish.
Okay, thank you for that. Samba, would you like to answer, give your views on the same topic?
Yeah, in fact, Kumar made a very nice way of saying that, okay, traditional risks and new risks. In fact, while he was answering, I was also thinking risks in certain ways, internal, external, which I already talked about. I think we are more ready for managing internal risks. But for external risk, I think we need to work harder, because external risks come unannounced. Internal risk, something which we can actually foresee a little bit.
Absolutely.
Similarly, short-term and long-term risks. Some risks are long-term impacting and some risks are short-term impact. So short-term, it is easy to risk, which is coming in, say, in the next 6 months, next 3 months and all. But what's going to happen as a big risk, for example, is OTT going to actually overpower television industry? It's a long-term risk for me. Short-term, I can say, okay, still television will survive and everything. But when I look at 20 years from now, whether OTT will be there and TV will not be there, I can't answer that now. If you ask me, people are saying that OTT will die in, say, TV will die in, say, 10 years time. People are saying that, or maybe 5 years time. So long-term risks are difficult to gauge. Short-term risks are easy to manage and mitigate. Similarly, external risks are difficult to manage. Internal risks are easier to manage. So that's the way I would look at it, taking a cue from Kumar for that thought process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Samba. Hitesh, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I truly echo whatever Mr. Kumar and Samba said. Definitely, it's a CFO responsibility to trade off between what we should pick now or what should we park. For example, in case of in our scenario, we have no control on government regulation. So whether the RERA for the real estate industry, they will bring certain risk, or whether they are threat to a portal or government launch their own portal. So all these risks are not controllable, and but we can foresee that. So one, there are internal risks truly in our control. which is being led by CFO or CHRO. We could be a contact point or a kind of a ignition for a particular department to work on a particular risk. But there are certain uncontrollable risks which are beyond our capacity, but we foresee that will be happening. So we can look and make a mitigation plan. If this happens, then I will be doing that. For example, in case of Tata Sky, they come with the OTT, means the app-based the stick, which is also taking a good market share versus Amazon or kind of that there are different players in the market who sell a particular stick also. So yes, that's a good mitigation. They foresee that. Similarly, in every organization, there are certain risks which they can foresee and can work on that. So that's why a CFO can take a lead and give a right input to the management and work towards it.
Okay, thanks, Hitesh. Neeraj, any final thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, I'll keep it short as we've run out of time. So yes, more than the CFOs becoming ready to manage the risk, role, I guess the CFOs owe a responsibility to the organization, to the entity, to make the entity ready to manage the subject of risk efficiently and effectively. Now, if you look at the recent changes made by SEBI as well in the month of May, now they are also moving in this direction where they want the risk management committee and the risk role. So I see a CFO play, whether the CFOs themselves champion the cause or get somebody else to do it or act as a conduit or a bridge between the risk management and the business. I do see a CFOs play a major role. The question to your question, are the CFOs for this role? Not quite yet, is my view. But clearly, I think this is one agenda and one topic which CFOs would be very, very, I guess it will be in everyone's interest if CFOs started equipping themselves with on this particular, with this agenda and this competency.
Okay, thank you for that. There have been a few questions. Some of them have been answered already. I think Samba has answered it for us online. Thank you for that. There are a couple of questions which are open in the chat box, and one of them is very interesting, which is both actually are interesting. The first one is, do CFOs have bandwidth for the CRO role? And given that CFOs are a very busy person, etc., do they really have bandwidth for taking on the role of the CRO? Any thoughts on that? Any one of you?
So I like to volunteer, Debashish. It again goes back to my conviction that if you're integrating this function in the business, bandwidth is not a challenge. So if the CFOs enable integration of risk management and business processes, then you're sharing this load and responsibility with many more business leaders. So that makes sense. Then it can be a very effective way of managing risks across the entity and enterprise.
The second one is also opens up a new line of thought, which I hadn't thought of at least. It says that, and this comes from Manvendra Gokhale, who says that, what would be your reaction to the CEO holding the CRO portfolio as well? Would CFOs be comfortable with that? Anyone, again, any of you can answer that.
If you just look at a kind of a natural way, it is not possible as well, because look at what is the role of CRO. CRO's role is to kind of a role of a brake in the car, while the CEO role is a role of a driver. So actually, CEO actually has to kind of need it. He cannot be just a kind of a brake itself. Otherwise, how kind of a growth would happen? And then there would be a kind of I will say conflict of interest as well. So CRO would look at kind of specs, which is more of a risk driven and the mitigation and like so on, while the CEO's specs is basically on a growth and drive the business. So I think there is always a conflict of interest. So naturally, I
clutch and the accelerator basically cannot be at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't press both at the same time, right? Then the car will not move at all.
Absolutely. I think the roles are fairly, I won't say diametrically, but fairly opposite, fairly contradictory. And I think, both of you, what you are saying is quite right. We need to separate these roles, else it is not good for the organization. It will it will stay at one place. It will not move forward at all. I tend to quite agree with that. Okay, I don't think we have any further questions. And also we have overstepped the time limit, but thanks all of you for a very, very enjoyable session. I hope the participants liked it. And I would like to thank all of you as well as Economic Times for organizing this and sort of inviting us to participate in that. I had a very good time. I hope all of you enjoyed yourselves. Look forward to more such discussion in the future, and let's be in touch. Thank you.